A forgotten starship left to rot. A human mechanic revives it into the ultimate galactic weapon. Jack's teller floated in the cold vacuum of space, staring at the massive shadow before him. It was a starship unlike any he had ever seen. Its hull was scarred, twisted, and eaten away by years of neglect. Panels hung like broken teeth, and the once shiny metal had dulled into a gray-brown rust. Despite its decay, Jax felt a thrill run through him. The starship was alive in a way, a giant puzzle waiting for someone daring enough to solve it. The orbital graveyard was silent. Ships of every kind had been abandoned here over centuries, floating aimlessly in the star system's weakened orbit. But none of the derelicts compared to this one. It was enormous, bigger than any human battleship, with strange contours that suggested it had been built for speed and power in ways humans could barely imagine. Jax adjusted his magnetic boots and pulled himself toward the boarding hatch. His tools were strapped to his belt, each one a testament to years of tinkering, fixing, and rebuilding machines others had given up on. He was famous, or infamous, across several star systems for being able to bring dead ships back to life. But this one was different. As he touched the hatch, it groaned. Rust flakes drifted into space, glinting like tiny stars. He hesitated. There could be traps, defense mechanisms, or structural failures. But hesitation was a luxury he didn't have. The Vrax Collective, an alien conglomerate that hunted advanced tech across the galaxy, had already been here. He could see their patrol ships moving in the distance, scanning the wreckage. Time was slipping through his fingers. With a deep breath, Jax forced the hatch open. It resisted at first, squealing under pressure, then gave way with a loud metallic groan. Inside, the ship was dark. Only dim emergency lights flickered weakly. The air smelled of ozone and old machinery. A metallic tang that made Jax's nose wrinkle. He floated inside, activating his helmet lights. The interior was a maze of corridors, panels, and alien technology. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, though most systems were offline. He moved cautiously, taking careful note of every wire, every sparking console. "This is going to be fun," Jax muttered to himself. He reached the main engineering deck. The ship's core lay before him, a massive reactor, cold and dormant. Jax ran his fingers along the surface, feeling the alien metals hum faintly beneath his touch. His human instincts kicked in, telling him which parts might still work and which were beyond repair. Hours passed as he worked. He patched circuits, rerouted energy lines, and improvised with tools he had on hand. At one point, a section of the floor collapsed under his weight, sending him sliding into a maintenance tunnel. He laughed despite himself. Even in the most dangerous situations, Jax always found a spark of joy in the work itself. Outside, the Brax scouts grew closer. He could hear their engines vibrating through the hull. They were cautious, but they were coming, and if they found him here, he would be outmatched. Humans were clever, but the Vrax were ruthless hunters, and a single ship like this, even damaged, was worth fighting for. Jax worked faster. He found the ship's main control console, a strange interface of glowing panels and tactile switches. It was unlike any human technology. Organic in some places, mechanical in others. He traced the wiring, made sense of the symbols, and slowly, painstakingly, started bringing life back to the systems. A hum began in the core, low at first, then growing louder. Lights flickered along the walls, systems booting up one by one. Jax felt a rush of excitement. The ship responded to him, almost as if it was testing him, learning whether he could be trusted. "This is incredible," Jax whispered. "It's alive." Suddenly the hum shifted into a deep, resonant tone. A voice. Not a voice in the human sense, but a vibration, a presence. The ship was speaking, or at least, trying to. Jax froze. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice echoing off the metal walls. The ship pulsed in response, a series of lights along the corridors flickering in sequence. He didn't understand the language, but he felt comprehension blossom in his mind. The ship was old, ancient even, and it had been abandoned not by accident but by necessity. Something had forced its crew to leave, or perhaps destroyed them. Jax ignored the voice for a moment and focused on stabilizing the reactor. Sparks flew, panels glowed, and the temperature sensors fluctuated wildly. He ducked under a falling cable and improvised a temporary fix, rerouting power manually. The reactor began to glow steadily, a soft blue light illuminating the deck. From outside, the Vrak scouts approached more aggressively. Jax could see their triangular forms on the viewport, moving silently, predatory. He knew they would strike soon, but he wasn't afraid. Fear was useful only if it sharpened the mind, and right now his mind was razor-focused on the ship and its systems. He climbed to the bridge, using maintenance shafts and ladders where the main corridors were damaged. The bridge was magnificent, though broken. Consoles floated mid-air in zero gravity. Holographic displays shimmered weakly, and a panoramic viewport revealed the star system's dying sun. Jax's fingers danced across the controls, activating shields and rudimentary propulsion systems. The ship shuddered beneath him as power flowed through its veins again. It wasn't full strength yet, but it was alive. Alive, and aware of him. He could sense a faint pulse, a heartbeat in the metal itself. Then the Vraks made their move. A laser beam sliced through the hull, striking near the main engines. Jax yelped and pulled a fire suppression line over the exposed conduit, sparks flying around him. The hull groaned, but it held. He glanced at the viewport. The scouts were circling, trying to find an entry point. Jax grinned, adrenaline surging. Humans weren't supposed to survive situations like this, but here he was, a lone mechanic inside a forgotten superweapon, facing an alien fleet. And the ship, he realized, was on his side. He pressed a final sequence on the console, and a wave of energy pulsed through the hull. Panels repaired themselves, hull breaches sealed, and lights blazed to life. The ship's hum transformed into a melodic vibration, as if it was singing. Jax could almost feel its gratitude. For a moment he allowed himself to dream. Imagine what they could do together. A human and an alien starship, lost to time but revived. They could fight, explore, and maybe even change the balance of power in the galaxy. But he couldn't linger. The Vraks were coming, and he had only just begun to awaken the giant. Jax adjusted his tools, secured himself to the deck, and took a deep breath. "Let's see what you can do," he said. And with that, the starship responded. Its engines roared faintly, a sound no human had ever heard before. The lights on the bridge pulsed in rhythm with Jax's heartbeat. Somewhere deep in its core, the ship's intelligence stirred, fully awake, acknowledging its savior. Outside, the Vrak scouts hesitated, sensing something powerful awakening. Jax smiled beneath his helmet. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were about to make their mark. And in the silent expanse of space, a forgotten starship had begun to live again. The hum of the starship filled the corridors as Jax Teller floated deeper into its heart. The lights along the walls pulsed softly, almost as if the ship were breathing. He had spent hours repairing its core, rerouting broken circuits, and calming the erratic power surges. Now, the ship was awake enough to respond to him, and that meant one thing: its secrets were waiting to be uncovered. Jax touched a glowing panel on the wall. Alien symbols shifted beneath his fingers, reacting to his presence. He had no translator, no manual, and no clue how this technology had ever worked. But he had something the galaxy's most advanced civilizations often lacked: human intuition. He studied the patterns, traced energy lines, and slowly, like a craftsman learning an ancient instrument, he began to understand. "This is incredible," Jax whispered. "The kind of tech they lost to time. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a weapon. A super weapon." That much became clear when he reached the main armory. Consoles floated mid-air, displaying schematics of energy projectors, defense turrets, and shields far stronger than anything humans had ever built. But most of the systems were inactive, wires dangling, plasma conduits shattered. Jax rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He rewired power conduits, fashioned improvised circuits from scrap panels, and carefully rerouted energy lines. Sparks flew, panels flickered, and sometimes the lights dimmed entirely. But every mistake was a lesson. Slowly, The armory hummed with renewed life. Not bad for a human. A deep, resonant vibration echoed through the corridors. The ship's voice, or its presence, was learning him, speaking in pulses that Jax could almost feel. He nodded. "We're partners now," he said. "You show me what you can do, I'll make it work." Hours turned into days. Jax moved methodically, exploring the ship room by room. He discovered storage bays filled with alien components, engines with strange power cores, and even a biological section, perhaps where the original crew had lived. Most systems were beyond repair, but he improvised. Small servos, spare conduits, and human ingenuity replaced entire sections of alien machinery. One day, while exploring a particularly damaged section of the hull, Jax stumbled across a hidden compartment. Inside lay a sphere glowing faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. He approached carefully, heart pounding. It was small, no bigger than a human torso, but the energy it radiated was immense. This is the control matrix," he realized aloud. The heart of the ship's weapons systems. He carefully connected a stabilizing cable from his tools to the sphere. The ship responded immediately. Lights blazed along the walls, turrets powered up, and the energy hum in the corridors deepened. The sphere pulsed in rhythm with the ship's core, as if acknowledging Jax's work. But he wasn't alone. Outside the ship, a Vrax scout vessel had found its way into the orbit. Jax could sense the vibrations through the hull, faint but unmistakable. The ship's sensors, partially online now, detected them too. He grinned. "Looks like we've got company." Jax activated the ship's emergency shields, a shimmering barrier that pulsed faintly blue around the hull. The Vrax scouts fired, energy beams striking the shield with sparks and heat. Jax quickly analyzed the patterns. The shields were designed to absorb damage in bursts, then recharge. Timing and precision would be key. He rigged a small control panel connecting it directly to his helmet HUD. Now he could manage the shields manually, adjusting their strength and distribution in real time. No alien protocol could match human improvisation. He began to test the limits, bouncing the energy beams, redirecting power where it was needed most. For hours he worked, dodging Vrax attacks and learning the ship's behavior. It wasn't perfect. Systems failed, lights flickered, and some turrets misfired. But every success strengthened both him and the ship. Then he discovered something extraordinary. A section of the ship's AI was still alive, hidden deep in a data core. It wasn't fully sentient, but it had memory and pattern recognition. Jax carefully interfaced with it, using a combination of human coding and improvised circuits. Slowly, he coaxed it awake. "You're alive," he said softly, watching as the AI's holographic interface shimmered into view. The ship pulsed in response, a soft, almost musical vibration. It was testing him, learning him, deciding whether to trust this human who had dared to awaken it. Jax smiled. "We're going to make a good team," the AI responded with a series of pulses, a communication humans could not speak aloud, but Jax could feel it. The ship was teaching him, offering him glimpses of its full capabilities. Energy cannons could fire in precise bursts. Shields could absorb incredible amounts of damage, and propulsion systems could make maneuvers faster than anything human ships had achieved. But to access the full potential, he would need rare materials. Asteroids, derelict ships, and salvageable debris in nearby sectors would have to suffice. Jax began planning. Using small drones he had rigged from the ship's maintenance units, he would scavenge what he could. Every bolt, every plasma cell, every scrap of metal could be repurposed to bring the ship closer to full strength. Days passed in a blur of work. Jax slept only when necessary, floating in small sleeping compartments, dreaming of the power he was slowly unlocking. The ship hummed beside him, alive and aware. Together, they were growing stronger. Then came the first real challenge. A Vrax frigate emerged from the shadows, scanning the graveyard. Its weapons were powerful, but the Starship's shields held steady under Jax's careful management. He rigged turrets with improvised targeting systems, combining alien tech with human ingenuity. When the frigate fired again, the ship responded. Energy beams launched, slicing through the wrack's hull with precision, disabling weapon systems without destroying the entire ship. Jax floated in the bridge, exhilarated. This was no longer just a repair mission. It was a battle of wits, strategy, and speed. Humans had something aliens often lacked: the ability to improvise in the moment, to make split-second decisions that no algorithm could predict. Hours later, the frigate retreated, damaged but still operational. Jax exhaled. "Not bad for a human," he muttered, glancing at the pulsing lights along the corridor. The ship seemed to respond, almost proudly. That night, while running diagnostics, he discovered another section of the ship previously hidden: an archive of star maps, battle plans, and engineering schematics. The maps were of star systems humans had never explored, containing resources and strategic points that could change the balance of power in the galaxy.
"This is bigger than I thought," Jack said, scanning the holograms.
Not just a weapon, a key. The ship pulsed again, acknowledging his statement. Together, they could become more than either had been alone. But Jax knew it wouldn't be easy. The Vrax Collective wouldn't give up. They would return, stronger and in greater numbers. And when they did, Jax would need every ounce of his skill, every bit of human ingenuity, and the ship itself to survive. He floated to the observation deck, staring out at the distant sun. The Vrax were patient hunters, but humans were unpredictable, clever, and bold. That combination was dangerous, and that was exactly why he was ready. Jax smiled, tightening his grip on his tools. "We've got work to do," he said. And in the quiet hum of the starship, it was as if the ship agreed. The forgotten superweapon was no longer forgotten. Under Jax Teller's hands, it was awakening. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The starship's engines hummed as Jax Teller floated in the bridge, eyes fixed on the dark expanse outside. The Vrax Collective wasn't done. They never were. Their scouts had returned in force, larger ships this time, and they were probing the orbital graveyard for any sign of him. Jax tightened his grip on the control panel. The starship responded instantly, as if reading his thoughts. Its lights pulsed rhythmically, corridors glowing with life that had long been absent. He had spent weeks rebuilding, rerouting power, and coaxing life back into systems that had been abandoned for centuries. But now came the true test, using the ship as it was meant to be used. The first Vrax frigate emerged from behind a floating asteroid, weapons glowing. Jax barely had time to react. He initiated the ship's shields, directing energy to the sectors facing the attack. Sparks flew along the hull as energy beams struck, but the shields held. Jax grinned. "Okay, let's see what you can really do." He accessed the turrets, improvising targeting software by combining human logic with the ship's alien systems. The turrets obeyed his commands, firing in perfect bursts. Energy beams cut through the frigate's hull with surgical precision, disabling its engines without destroying the entire vessel. The Vrax responded with an unpredictable maneuver, coming at the ship from angles that no human vessel could normally survive. Jax anticipated the patterns, adjusting shields and propulsion on the fly. He spun the starship like a dancer in zero gravity, dodging blasts and finding weak points in the enemy's attack. Hours passed in a blur of maneuvers and energy flashes. The starship was alive, its AI learning from Jax, adapting faster than he could imagine. Together, they anticipated the Vrax moves before the aliens made them. Every time a beam struck, the shields absorbed and redistributed energy. Every time a turret misfired, Jax quickly recalibrated, improvising in real time. This is amazing," he muttered. "No human ship has ever moved like this." He began to experiment with the ship's full weapon systems. There were plasma cannons, energy projectors, and something he hadn't yet dared to touch: a massive pulse generator that could disable entire fleets if activated correctly. The ship's AI warned him with vibrations and pulsing lights. It hadn't fully trusted him with this system yet. But Jax's human instinct told him that boldness often outweighed caution. He initiated a small test targeting a Vrax patrol ship. The pulse surged through the ship's systems, The Brax vessel convulsed, weapons offline, engines sparking, and it floated helplessly. Jax felt a rush of satisfaction. Sometimes brute force isn't the answer. Precision, improvisation. That's humanity's edge. The Vrax weren't done. A dreadnought emerged from behind a distant asteroid, massive, heavily armored, and bristling with weaponry. It dwarfed Jax's starship. He took a deep breath. The human in him wanted to panic. The engineer in him wanted to run, but the mechanic, the problem solver, rose above fear.
"All right," he whispered. "Time to think."
He analyzed the dreadnought's movement patterns. It was powerful, but it was predictable. Jax rigged a series of decoy signals using the ship's auxiliary systems, tricking the dreadnought into firing at phantom targets. Then, using precise bursts from the pulse generator and energy projectors, he disabled key weapon nodes. The dreadnought's shields held, but it slowed. Jax could see its frustration. The Vrax assumed they were superior in every way, that humans were clever but fragile. They had not counted on ingenuity, adaptability, and the ability to improvise in real time. Jax began to move the starship in ways the Vrax could not anticipate, spinning, flipping, and weaving between asteroids. He launched small automated drones to distract the enemy, each one rigged with energy charges crafted from salvaged ship parts. The drones collided with the dreadnought's hull, creating temporary malfunctions and giving him openings. Hours of battle wore on, but every Vrax attack was countered, and every weakness was exploited. Jax's human creativity, combined with the ship's alien technology, formed a partnership that even the Vrax couldn't predict. Then came a critical moment. A massive energy beam from the dreadnought struck near the ship's engines, knocking out auxiliary systems. Jax's hands flew across the controls, rerouting power, stabilizing the shields, and reigniting the propulsion core. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and for a moment it seemed the starship might fail. But Jax refused to give up. Using a combination of calculated risk and improvisation, he activated the pulse generator at half power, targeting the dreadnought's engine grid. Bah! The effect was immediate. The dreadnought shuddered, its weapons offline, drifting helplessly. Jax allowed himself a brief smile. "Not bad for a human," he said. The starship pulsed in response, almost proudly, but there was no time to celebrate. More Vrax ships were approaching, and Jax knew they would bring even larger fleets. He floated to the observation deck, looking out at the distant star system. Humanity's survival often relied on unpredictability, courage, and thinking one step ahead. Those were the qualities that had kept humans alive for millennia, and he would need every one of them now. He accessed the ship's archives again, reviewing star maps, alien battle strategies, and resource locations. The Vrax were powerful, but they relied on predictable patterns and overwhelming force. Humans relied on adaptability, creativity, and improvisation. That combination was lethal. Jax began planning. He would need to lead the Vrax into a trap, using the asteroid fields, the debris of abandoned ships, and the ship's superior agility to outmaneuver them. The pulse generator and energy projectors would be the cornerstones of his strategy, but clever tactics would win the battle, not raw power alone. He rigged automated defense drones, created decoy projections of the starship, and prepared multiple escape and attack routes through the asteroid field. Every calculation, every adjustment was a testament to human ingenuity. No algorithm, no alien code could account for the boldness and unpredictability of a single human mind.
As night fell, or what passed for night in the vacuum of space, the Vrax fleet began their approach.
Their ships moved with precision, weapons ready, sensors scanning for the smallest anomaly. Jax took a deep breath, floating in the bridge as the starship hummed in response.
"Time to show them what humans are capable of," he whispered.
The first Vrax ships entered the asteroid field. Jax's preparations paid off immediately. They collided with hidden debris, slowed by decoy projections, and their weapons were misaligned. Using the pulse generator at calculated intervals, he disabled engines, shields, and weapons, turning the first wave of attackers into drifting wrecks. The dreadnought, still recovering, attempted a frontal assault. Jax anticipated the move, spinning the ship in a sudden maneuver that threw off the enemy's targeting systems. Energy projectors fired, disabling key weapon nodes, while drones created chaos in the fleet. The battle was intense, exhausting, and dangerous. But every time the Vrax thought they had the upper hand, Jax adapted. He improvised, recalculated, and used the Starship in ways no one had ever imagined. Finally, after hours of combat, the remaining Vrax ships retreated. The Starship floated in the wreckage, engines humming steadily, shields glowing softly. Jax floated to the bridge, exhausted but elated. He looked at the pulsing lights along the corridor. "We did it," he said quietly. The ship responded with a rhythmic hum, acknowledging their shared victory. Jax knew this was only the beginning. The Vrax would return with more ships, larger fleets, and deadlier strategies. But for now, humanity had proven itself. Against a superior enemy with technology far beyond human understanding, it was not brute force, but ingenuity, courage, and adaptability that had won the day. And Jax Teller, a single human mechanic, had become the pilot of a weapon the galaxy had long forgotten. A weapon that now had a mind, a heartbeat, and a partnership with humanity that could change everything. He floated to the observation deck, gazing at the distant stars. Humanity had survived, adapted, and triumphed. And as he prepared for the battles yet to come, he felt a deep certainty. They would continue to defy expectations, outsmart foes, and rise above any challenge. The forgotten superweapon was no longer just a machine. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, daring, and courage. And Jax Teller was ready to lead it into the galaxy. Jax Teller floated in the bridge, hands gripping the controls as the Starship thrummed beneath him. The calm after the last battle was short-lived. Sensors picked up movement in the distance, a massive Vrax fleet, larger than anything he had faced before. Capital ships, dreadnoughts, and swarms of smaller fighters were converging on the graveyard. This was it. The moment he had been preparing for. Humanity had survived countless odds before, but this was more than survival. This was proving that human ingenuity, courage, and boldness could triumph over the galaxy's most feared enemy. The Starship hummed, responding to his thoughts and movements. It was more than a machine now. It was alive, sentient, and aware of its partnership with Jax. The AI pulsed along the corridors in rhythm with his heartbeat. It had learned to trust him, and now they would face the ultimate test together. Jax activated the ship's full power systems. Energy surged through the hull. Shields expanded to full strength, and weapon systems lit up like a star on fire. He took a deep breath. Improvisation would be key. Strategy would matter. And courage would carry them through. The first wave of Vrax fighters entered the asteroid field. Jax guided the ship with skill born of practice and intuition. They weaved between debris, using the terrain as a weapon. Automated drones he had prepared flew out, drawing fire and creating confusion. Energy projectors fired with precision, disabling engines and weapons nodes before the fighters could regroup. One of the Vrax capital ships moved in from the flank, massive cannons ready. Jax analyzed its pattern, predicting its next move. He activated the pulse generator at calculated intervals, targeting its power conduits. Sparks and fire erupted along the alien ship's hull. It staggered, losing speed and firepower. Jax smiled. "Never underestimate a human," he muttered. The Starship pulsed in agreement, almost proudly. But the Vrax were relentless. Another dreadnought appeared, far larger and more heavily armed than the first. It barreled toward him, weapons glowing with deadly intent. Jax had studied it, mapped every weakness, and rigged the battlefield with improvised defenses. Still, the sheer size and firepower of the dreadnought were terrifying. He took a deep breath and acted. Using the ship's advanced propulsion systems, he spun, flipped, and darted unpredictably. The dreadnought fired repeatedly, but each shot missed or struck decoys. Jax had rigged holographic projections to mimic the Starship's movements, confusing the enemy and giving him openings. He fired energy beams from multiple turrets simultaneously, targeting the dreadnought's engines. It shuddered, slowed, and lost maneuverability. But it wasn't finished. Its shields pulsed, firing back with devastating energy bursts. Jax dodged, weaving the ship like a dancer, and retaliated with the pulse generator. The Starship and Jax were moving as one. He felt its thoughts, its patterns, and it felt his decisions. The ship adapted to his improvisations, responding faster than any human mind alone could manage. Together, they were unstoppable. Jax knew he couldn't just survive. He had to finish this. He activated the Starship's ultimate weapon system. Alien energy surged through the hull, converging on the massive pulse generator. The AI pulsed in warning, but Jax reassured it through vibrations and mental commands. This was the right moment. Timing was everything. With a deep exhale, he unleashed the full force of the generator. A wave of energy spread through space, targeting the dreadnoughts and capital ships. Energy shields overloaded, engines stalled, and entire ships were thrown into chaos. The Vrax fleet reeled under the sudden and precise attack, but victory was not yet complete. Smaller fighters attempted to swarm him, hoping to exploit the chaos. Jax guided the ship in sharp, unpredictable arcs. He launched drones and improvised traps from the ship's armory. Each fighter that approached was disabled, captured, or destroyed without endangering the ship. Hours passed in a blur of energy flashes, explosions, and high-speed maneuvers. Jax's human determination and creativity kept him alive. The ship's sentient systems learned from him, anticipating enemy moves and suggesting solutions. Together, they dismantled the Vrax fleet piece by piece. Finally, after the longest battle of his life, the remnants of the Vrax fleet retreated. The graveyard was littered with wreckage, glowing fragments drifting in the void. The Starship floated, fully powered, shields shimmering, weapon systems glowing with controlled energy. Jax exhaled, leaning back in his chair. He felt the hum of the ship beneath him, steady and alive. "We did it," he said softly. The ship pulsed in response, a vibration of satisfaction and acknowledgement. He accessed the ship's archives once more. The maps, battle strategies, and resources within were now fully accessible. Humanity had gained an advantage in the galaxy that no one could ignore. But Jax knew this power came with responsibility. The Starship was not just a weapon, it was a living partner, and they would need to protect it, learn from it, and use it wisely. As he floated to the observation deck, he gazed at the distant stars. Humanity had survived, adapted, and now thrived. They had proven their ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability against an enemy far stronger on paper. They had turned a forgotten, decayed starship into the ultimate weapon, not just through technology, but through creativity, audacity, and partnership. Jax allowed himself a rare smile.
"We're just getting started," he said. The ship pulsed warmly in reply, lights glowing along its corridors.
It had chosen humanity, chosen him, and together they would face whatever the galaxy had in store. In the distance, faint signals indicated other systems had noticed the battle. Humanity's reputation would grow. The galaxy would begin to understand that humans were not weak, not predictable, and not disposable. They were innovators, survivors, and above all, bold enough to challenge anyone, even the most powerful alien fleets. Jax floated in the bridge, eyes scanning the stars. The Vrax Collective had been beaten, at least for now. But the galaxy was vast, filled with unknown threats and mysteries. The Starship, once forgotten and left to rot, now carried humanity's courage and ingenuity into the stars. He thought of the long journey ahead, exploring new systems, testing the ship's limits, and learning more about its alien technology. And through it all, humans would continue to surprise, adapt, and conquer challenges that seemed impossible. "This is what we do," he whispered, reaching for the controls. "We survive, we adapt, we rise." The ship pulsed, lights glowing brighter than ever. Together, they launched from the orbital graveyard into open space. Stars streaked past as the engines roared, carrying the ultimate weapon and its human pilot toward the unknown. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. Now they had a taste of what humans were capable of. And the forgotten Starship, once left to rot, had become the symbol of their potential. And for Jax Teller, there was no turning back. The adventure was just beginning.